Okay, so today we're going to dive into this really fascinating historical account of a society basically on the brink of collapse, a nation that's grappling with its own internal demons.
So what does happen when a nation's greatest enemy is, well, itself? We're going to explore that exact question by looking at this dramatic 25-year period from a text called the Book of Helaman. It chronicles a nation's struggle with some really serious stuff: political corruption, secret societies, and this dangerous, repeating cycle of self-destruction.
All right, so our story kicks off in the 40th year of the Nephite judges. Their leader, a man named Pahoran, dies, and his death leaves this huge, dangerous power vacuum.
Right away, 3 of Pahoran's sons jump in to try and take his place. The people end up choosing the first son, who's also named Pahoran. Now the second son, Paanchi, he is not happy about this, so he rebels and gets quickly executed for treason. The third son, Pakumini, he seems to play it cool and just accepts the people's choice, but trust me, this conflict was far from over.
You can probably guess what happens next. The supporters of the brother who is executed, Panchi, they were absolutely furious. And in this shocking act of political payback, they send an assassin named Kishkumen to murder the new leader. And get this, he does it in the most brazen way possible, right on the judgment seat itself. This one single assassination just sends the government into a total tailspin. The nation gets so caught up in its own internal fighting that they leave their capital city completely vulnerable. An invading army sees their chance, sweeps in, sacks the city, and kills the next judge, Pakumeni. So in just 1 year, the nation is left leaderless and in absolute chaos.
Now, that assassination, it wasn't just some random act of violence. Nope, it was the work of a very organized group operating in the shadows. This was truly an enemy from within.
And they came to be known as the Gadianton robbers. They were a secret society led by this master manipulator named Gadianton, and their entire goal was to take over power through violence, through conspiracy, you name it. And here's the crucial part, the thing that made them so powerful. It was all built on secret oaths. They swore to protect each other no matter what, basically creating a shadow government where their loyalty to the conspiracy was way more important than the actual laws of the land. And that's how they got away with everything.
So over time, they just worked their way into the government. They assassinate chief judges, they install their own people in powerful positions, and they corrupt the laws until they have, and I quote, the sole management of the government. They were completely rotting it from the inside out.
But you know, the rise of this secret society wasn't just a political problem, it was really a symptom of a much, much bigger issue. This story reveals this recurring pattern, this boom and bust cycle that just seems to be hardwired into human nature.
Here's how it plays out. A period of hardship makes people humble. That humility leads to righteousness. And then, boom, prosperity. But that prosperity, it's like a double-edged sword. It so often leads to pride, an obsession with wealth, and that just opens the door for corruption, and eventually, the whole society collapses. And then, the cycle starts all over again.
It's a total paradox, right? Their own success became their greatest vulnerability. As they got wealthier and more comfortable, they just started to forget the very principles that made them prosperous to begin with, and they got more and more arrogant from day to day.
And this part just illustrates the point perfectly. There's this fascinating role reversal that takes place. The Nephites, who are at the very height of their prosperity, become completely corrupt. And at the same time, their longtime enemies, the Lamanites, actually become more righteous because they've had to endure hardship.
So, with the entire nation just spiraling downwards, one person decides he's got to do something. A prophet named Nephi sees this corruption destroying his people, and he decides he's going to intervene in a really dramatic way.
He gets up on a tower in his garden and mourns publicly. You can almost hear the pain in his voice as he talks about how far his society has fallen from the ideals of its founders, who were quick to hearken unto the words of the Lord. To prove just how deep the corruption really went, Nephi makes this absolutely stunning prophecy. He says the chief judge has just been murdered. So some messengers run to check, and sure enough, it's true. But then he goes a step further. He reveals the assassin's identity. It was the judge's own brother, who was a member of that secret society. And faced with this impossible knowledge, the brother confesses everything.
You'd think a miracle like that would snap everyone out of it, right? Nope. A lot of people just refuse to believe it. They actually accuse Nephi of being part of the conspiracy.
The whole society just fractured, and instead of repenting, they descended into civil war.
So, in a last-ditch effort, seeing his people just killing each other, Nephi prays for a devastating famine to replace the war. His hope was that maybe a different kind of suffering would finally get their attention.
And the famine he prayed for was severe. It affected everyone, all across the land, and it finally forced people to stop and confront what they were doing.
And you know what? It worked. Faced with actual starvation, the people finally woke up. They repented, they completely purged the Gadianton robbers from their society, and they begged Nephi to pray for rain. He did, the famine ended, and for a little while, prosperity returned.
The result of this huge national wake-up call was peace and prosperity, but it only lasted for 3 short years.
It's almost unbelievable, right? In less than a decade, that whole cycle was back in full swing. All that hard-won prosperity led them straight back to pride and corruption. As the text puts it, they were once again ripening for destruction.
The account kind of concludes with this really somber observation on just how fragile human virtue is, especially when we're faced with ease and wealth. It really seems that without some kind of hardship, people are just so quick to forget.
And that's what leaves us with this haunting question. If even these incredible miracles and near total destruction only lead to a temporary change, how can any society, whether it's ancient or modern, truly break free from a cycle of its own making?